As we all know that the pandemic is still not over, and it has impacted the whole world, from the biggest to the smallest country, whatever be the terrain. China remains a global concern. But now we are seeing that this Eurasian war, which has taken place between Russia and Ukraine, has caused a new challenge for the world. As such, we were living through a global disorder, which was, or some call it as a transitional world order. No one knew really where it is heading. But it is with this war, there is a certain direction in my mind which is emerging. What we have seen in this war is something which is very unique. Sanctions have been very common, but the weaponization of various non-traditional dimensions and instruments, that it has been applied this time. So this was a new kind of a weapon that the Americans used against the Russians, the most sanctioned country in the world as of date, and the way the Russians have responded. And ironically, in the last 80-90 days, the Russians have managed to make more than $100 billion of the Western countries. And then they are now asking that if they want the food items, which has caused the major crisis in the energy and the food security and the fuel and everywhere else. And you must have read that the impact of this war is not only on Russia, which is still less at the moment, it may be much more later on. What we are seeing is that the United Kingdom is currently facing the worst standard of living in history after the Second World War in the last 70 years. United States has the highest inflation rate at the moment. The European countries are facing tremendous crisis. And countries like India, which are hoping to grow at 8% or so, are facing a major problem as well, whether it is in the fuel or in the food or other sectors. There are so many areas in which we have major challenges. But at the same time, the gravity has shifted also towards the south, and more so as far as America is concerned, towards its major rival, strategic rival, China, that is going to be in the Indo-Pacific. And it is in this context, and I say that this focus has remained because India has been telling the Americans that you are barking the wrong pole, and therefore you need to be concerned about what exactly is the major problem. And so when we are part of the Quad, or when we heard in September 21 that suddenly, which was kept quite confidential or a secret to a great extent, that Australia, UK and USA decided to form a security alliance, the AUKUS. The fact is that the Quad, because of India's position and also some other countries' approaches towards China, the Americans were not getting the kind of security alliances that they wanted. And therefore they looked at AUKUS as a means to go forward and to continue with their security alliances, which already had. But this is formalized in the trilateral domain. And more importantly, as you all know, about the nuclear submarines, providing them the latest technologies, or whether it is in cyber area. So this AUKUS pact, so-called, is going to cover several technologies which the Americans have not shared earlier, or they will be sharing now. Now, of course, as you know, the joint statement that was issued, it did not mention China. But China, as they say, the dragon is always on the ports, or we say that elephant in the room. So I think that they are everywhere, omnipresent. So this is against them in a way. So they said that the joint statement very interestingly points that this is a historic opportunity for the three nations with like-minded allies and partners to protect shared values and promote security and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. So this remains their major focus. The UK government also said that under the AUKUS alliance, we will enhance the development of joint capabilities and technology sharing, ensuring our people are kept safe from harm and reinforcing our shared goals. Now, whether it will be able to succeed to keep that, because what we are seeing is the after effects of Russia-Ukraine war has virtually shaken the world as it is. So if that was the case to happen with China, how are we going to move forward? So there is a greater integration in security and defense-related science, technology, and all that is expected. And all three countries are supposed to come out with some kind of a joint action plan, which was to be provided within 18 months, so to say. Now, they're working on it. Some say that it will take 15 more years. Some put it at 2039 by the time the capabilities will be actually available to the Australians. And as you know, today, Australia is going through an election. Now, both the candidates, Prime Minister Morrison and Albanese, they are both virtually equal, but the other smaller parties are probably getting greater traction. So if the Labour gets back again, we'll have to see some kind of a leverage or leveraging out, or maybe not such a great emphasis on anti-China stance in Australia as we have seen in the past. That's what's happened. So the problem has been how they are going to carry forward with the same kind of an intensity under the given circumstances, and what in my view would be the relationship for AUKUS and Quad, so to say, to some extent. Now, China, everybody knows that, is continuing to its effort to dislodge United States from its numero uno position. And if after this war we enter into a much more insidious Cold War 2.0, that will mean that there will be a greater arms race. There we will see a much greater possibility of contestations by other means, not necessarily direct military action. It could possibly be because now we have seen that since the financial instruments have been used, energy has been weaponized, food is being weaponized. So when these things are happening, we will probably see an emergence of a new architecture, financial architecture. And that would be making things more difficult, even though the choices will become available for countries to get into the border, barter and other things. So we are looking at it, that possibilities from in that kind of a situation which is happening. Now, these nuclear powered submarines, I mean, you are all experts, so you'll be discussing it. But this is also not the only one. There are other similar organizations that have been working. There are treaties that have been working in this area. So the issue that happened is whether Australia going through the nuclear submarines, will it abdicate NPT regime or it will violate NPT regime, nuclear non-proliferation treaty. Every country, we have seen the ASEAN countries, the reaction was generally not there, but Indonesia and Malaysia, the two major countries, reacted to it. They said it will increase the race, so to say, arms race in the place, and more in the nuclear domain. New Zealand, which is a country which is part of the Five Eyes intelligence community, in which is also opposed to any nuclear submarines coming to its area. So those are the problems that they will be facing in essentially implementing this kind of a situation. Now, of course, UK is part of it and is gaining out of it. But then you have another major Indo-Pacific power in France, from whom this deal has been snatched away overnight by the Americans. And no doubt Macron called Morrison as a liar, and they called back their ambassador. They have still not gone back. We used to have a trilateral, which was India, France, and Australia. That trilateral has been called off. The other, although with the Americans, the President Biden called him, tried to assuage, so their ambassadors have been interchanged once again. But at the same time, the French remain suspect. And with France, European Union remains suspect of the intentions of the Americans. Today we are listening, and most of the people are saying that there is never before unity in the transatlantic alliance, which has happened there. Whether it will sustain this war only, the Russia-Ukraine war, I doubt very much. It will continue on the same path. Very difficult to say at this stage. But definitely, we will see that this kind of a movement to diversify and will continue. And China will probably rise in the race, and it will continue to go forward. I mean, there was a study by the Americans, so this was, I think, the defense statement, in which they said that China's rapid arms buildup is becoming a world-class military power by 2035, and to fight and win wars against a strong adversary by 2049. I mean, that is the Chinese objective, and that is continuing on the same path. It wants not to get engaged in direct conflict so that its economy does not go down further, and therefore it is taking very calibrated steps even during the current war that we have seen. But China and Russia, in my view, will be together. Why? When AUKUS was announced this September, for the first time, the Russian and Chinese navies did their patrols and exercises for the first time in the Pacific. And these joint naval patrol, and recently you must have seen 4th February when Putin was there in Beijing, they issued a joint statement underscoring their partnership, and they said this is a partnership without any limits. It opens up every single domain for their cooperation. Same thing we are seeing now. Only 2 days ago this week, the Quad Summit, which is happening now, which is going May 24th, that summit on the Quad, as you know, the Russians have a position, and they are not convinced that it is not against China. It is not a containment. India still has a nuanced position on the Chinese containment. So he said that Lavrov once again said that this Quad is inimical to peace in the region. So we have to see that how it is going to go there. US is probably trying to get now South Korea into it, Indonesia, some other countries. So we'll have to see how the future of Quad develops in the one sense and the AUKUS in the other. Now, it is true that the AUKUS is not a game changer. We might say whatever it is, because there are individual countries that are having a problem in its acceptance and its movability, and we are looking at a time frame about 15. It might be used as a reassurance to America's partners in the region that if you are my security partner, I'm standing up for you. But that is not always the case, and that has not always been the case for the Americans, as we know. So the European Union is still not convinced about the American intent. All of them have come up with their own Indo-Pacific strategies, as we have seen, whether it is UK, whether it is Germany, France, Netherlands, or for that matter, European Union itself. Their EU Commission President was recently in India and again reiterated that we would like to work with you. So for India today, there are umpteen number of partners with whom we can cooperate in the Indo-Pacific. So it is important, and I think a critical point for us at a critical time. As far as Japan is concerned, I think you know that Japan is also having the same problems as we have with China. But Japan has a security arrangement. They have a security treaty. They have a defense collaboration with the United States. So they fall in this domain. But at the same time, they don't want to also come into the direct line of fire as far as China is concerned. But they want to continue to work with them. So I feel that the situation is evolving at the moment. We'll have to see how it eventually plays out, because that is very important from our point of view. As far as India is concerned, as you know, that when AUKUS happened, our foreign secretary says it is not relevant to us or to the Quad. That means, but I feel that what AUKUS did to us, that it took away the heat from India. You know, when we were talking about China, because when Prime Minister Modi went to Shangri-La and defined our Indo-Pacific strategy, it was said that it is against aggression, it is against monopolization of the maritime ways, it is for free and open Indo-Pacific, but it is not against a country, and even invited China to be part of it. That's right. So that is something India has been maintaining it, and that has been a bone of contention with other countries. Similarly, our position on, as you know, on this Russia, they wanted India to condemn the war, but India has done it in a very suave manner while maintaining its strategic autonomy. It is not palatable to them, but they can live with it. They can live with it. Why? Because they know India's strategic position and the necessity of India being a part in the larger scheme of things as far as the United States and others are concerned. And I think we need to, at that point, try to leverage it to our own advantage. I see that the AUKUS at the moment is a talking point. There are meetings have started happening. Even during the war, we have seen that the Australian defense minister, he traveled to USA to talk to the UK and others. But the problem is that between France and Australia, there is still the differences have not been bridged. And it was not simply economical that they lost a $66 billion deal. It is much more strategic because France considers itself as a major Pacific power. The two other points that we need to remember is this AUKUS is a pure white man's club, number one. It is purely European and American and Pacific oriented. It doesn't have any Asian power. So its focus is essentially on the Pacific region, and how it blends towards India and other Asian countries is something that we will have to watch. I think it's a bit too early to say how the AUKUS will eventually, what kind of a basic big force it will become, who will become its new members, at what stage that will happen. So we need to see and what happens in the domestic politics of Australia itself. We have seen that the Australians, for the last, they were out of our exercises and all that. And Malabar only last, they joined us. Earlier, they were not keen to it because they wanted to continue to have the relations with China. China is moving very fast into far off territories, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, and everywhere. We are seeing that. So containment or not, or stoppage of China, it is going on, and whatever efforts are made, whether by AUKUS, by Quad or other countries, needs to be seen. But we need to mind that we are looking forward to operate in an environment where world will be divided into two blocks. And what kind of a way India will take will have to be seen. I always promote that we should lead a grouping of nations for strategic autonomy.